Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to dig into a really ambitious idea. What if the same exact blueprint could be used to solve a major community health crisis and also unlock a disconnected global financial system? It's a pretty wild thought. One theory for two totally different problems.
All right, to really get this, we have to start with a pretty shocking reality. In just 4 years, from 2017 to 2021, the life expectancy for status First Nations in British Columbia just plummeted by over 6 years. Now, that's not just a number on a chart. It's a huge step backward and a really clear sign that the systems we have in place are failing.
And the source material argues this isn't just about health, it's about economics too. It paints a picture of what they call a revolving door. You can see the cycle here. People get sick, they end up in high-cost emergency care, but the root causes are never fixed, so they're sent back out, and the whole painful and expensive cycle just starts all over again. It's a system that manages sickness instead of actually creating wellness.
Okay, section 1, a system in crisis. So, what's really going on here? What's the root of the problem? Well, the documents we're looking at have a very specific diagnosis. And here's the core idea. This isn't about not having enough money. The problem is the design. The analogy they use is perfect. It's like pouring more and more water into a bucket that's full of cracks. You can pour all you want, but until you fix the bucket itself, the water's just going to keep leaking out.
And you can see this broken design hits a whole range of people across British Columbia. For Indigenous peoples, there are huge gaps in primary care because of deep systemic issues. If you live in a rural area, just getting to a specialist is a massive hurdle. And for low-income families, the gap between what you earn and what housing costs is just impossible. It's a system creating barriers to the most basic things people need.
All right, section 2, redesigning for wellness. So if the system's design is broken, how do you fix it? Well, the proposed solution doesn't start with some new government policy. It starts with something you can actually hold in your hand.
And this is it, the BarNess Miracle Bar. Now, this isn't some magic fix-all. The source material calls it a stabilization primitive, which is kind of a fancy way of saying it's like the first domino. The whole point is to just stop the immediate bleeding by providing real, solid nutrition, which then creates the stability you need to start making deeper, more structural changes. And the whole point of making those changes is to build something lasting. The ultimate goal is to create what's known as a blue zone. And if you've never heard of these, they are incredible. They're places around the world where people live much longer, healthier lives, not because of fancy hospitals, but because wellness is baked right into their everyday culture. Okay, section 3, the community wealth engine. So, a nutritional bar is great for health, for sure. But how on earth does that translate into actual wealth and independence for a community? This is where things get really interesting. This diagram shows the economic engine that's supposed to make it all work. It's a flywheel, a consumer-to-asset model. The idea is to create a cycle that just keeps feeding itself, where communities' everyday spending gets turned directly into permanent wealth that they actually own. So how does it actually work? Let's break it down. Step 1, people in the community spend money on the bar. Simple enough. But then, automatically, 20% of that money goes into a wealth fund. That fund then buys tangible assets, in this case, productive farmland, through something called a REIT. And just like that, you've transformed people from just consumers into actual owners of an asset that provides food and grows in value. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds complicated. How do you manage all this? Well, that's where an ethical AI named Genie comes in. Think of it as the central nervous system for the whole operation. It's programmed with a strict do-no-harm philosophy to make sure everything runs smoothly and ethically, providing what the source calls guilt-free progress. And this is the end game for this first model. A thriving First Nations community, totally self-sufficient, leading the way in wellness, and backed by the security of owning their own land. It's a really powerful vision of what's possible.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Section 4, a new paradigm for value. We're about to zoom way out and see how this exact same thinking gets applied to something completely different, the world of global finance.
And guess what? The sources point out another huge design problem here. You've got these 3 massive forces in the world: capital, money looking for growth; real estate, which is stable; and tech, which is all about disruption. But they're all stuck in their own lanes, their own silos, and they rarely ever work together effectively. Which brings us to Section 5, the global sanctuary model. And to fix this problem, a second model is put on the table. Now, it looks totally different at first glance, but as you're about to see, it has the exact same DNA as the first one. And this is it, BarNessQION. It's designed to be the engine that smashes those silos. It merges that fast-moving tech capital with something totally different, a portfolio of unique, irreplaceable properties they call sanctuaries, to create a whole new kind of value. So instead of productive farmland like in the first model, the asset here is this collection of incredible properties called sanctuaries. We're talking about a portfolio of one-of-a-kind places all over the globe, from the Alps to the deserts of the UAE. And we're not just talking about fancy hotels here. These places, from a tree hotel in Lapland to a ranch in Patagonia, are described as actual cultural and environmental treasures. The model is about using long-term capital to preserve them and using technology to actually deepen the experience of being there. Okay, so Section 6, 2 visions, 1 philosophy. This is the big question, right? How do these two things, helping a community in BC and creating a luxury asset portfolio, how do they possibly connect? And boom, here it is, the light bulb moment. When you put them side by side, you see it. They're both flywheels. They're both built on the exact same idea of a self-reinforcing cycle that just keeps spinning, creating more and more value. One builds community wealth, the other builds financial returns.
This table just lays it all out perfectly. Look, the goals couldn't be more different, right? Health and sovereignty for a community versus big financial returns. The assets are different, farmland versus these exclusive sanctuary properties. But the engine, the core philosophy of creating that virtuous self-sustaining cycle, it's exactly the same.
And that really leaves us with the big, fascinating question at the heart of this whole thing. Can one grand idea, one single blueprint, really be the key to redesigning systems that are so fundamentally different? And what does it mean for us if the same logic that builds a healthy community can also build an exclusive global asset class? That's the idea we're left to chew on.